Morning, everyone. I apologize. My tech isn't working well enough to actually see me. And I even showered and got dressed today. So, I was looking forward to being able to see everyone. So as Bill mentioned, we have with us today an alumni, Becca Millard, who is finishing up her graduate degree at BU, and Caroline, who is a current student. So I figured what we would do is I'll go through the slide presentation. I have about 9 or 10 slides, so I can give you some information about the major. And then I want to let Becca and Caroline talk to you about their experiences and what they're doing now. And then we'll open it up for any kind of questions that you may have. Okay. So let's keep our fingers crossed this works. Okay. Okay, so our forensic science program here at Roger Williams is an interdisciplinary major. We designed it this way so that our students would get the scientific background that they need, either specifying a track in bio or chem, and then fulfilling that with some courses in criminal justice, because going into the forensic science field, we feel as though our students also need to understand how the criminal justice system works, because these are going to be careers where you may have to testify in court, you're doing a lot of report writing, so it's very critical to have an understanding of our criminal justice system as well, okay? At Roger, there are several degree requirements that everybody has to complete. We have interdisciplinary core, which are our general education courses. So everyone takes a fine arts course, they take a history course, a human behavior course, and a senior seminar. For the skills courses, everyone has to do a specific math requirement for their major, as well as writing courses. Our core concentration, we require every student at the university to do a core concentration in a liberal art. We are a liberal arts university. That is, very near and dear to us. And a lot of our students in the forensic science area do a core concentration in psychology, anthropology, sociology. I even have students who are doing core concentrations in dance, music, French, so there are lots of options. One of the great things about the core concentration is that it's 5 courses, and typically if you add a 6th course, you have a minor. So what I tend to see with my forensic science students is that they're majoring in forensic science and they're doing minors in criminal justice as well as a liberal art. So it's making them very well-rounded when they are done with their degrees. As I mentioned earlier, our forensic science students have the choice to select either a biology track or a chemistry track. Becca did biology, correct?
Yes.
And Caroline is in the chem track. So we have someone here who can speak a little bit to each of those. And then I'm going to go through the criminal justice courses and the forensic science courses on the next couple of slides. So if you want to take the biology track, what you see on the screen are the specific science courses that a biology track forensic science student will take. So we've got the regular biologies, genetics, the human anatomy and physiology 1 and 2, micro, biotech, 2 semesters of chemistry, and 2 semesters of physics. Now, I do want to mention here, and this pertains to the chemistry track as well, that if we have a student who is pre-med, we also have a specific list of courses that we recommend that they take in addition to these, okay? When we do our advising, we're very interested in knowing what our students plan to do when they graduate, because we want to help guide them in their course selection. So for example, when Becca realized she wanted to go to graduate school, there were some additional courses that we needed to make sure that she had, okay? So that's why it's very important, and I think one of our hallmarks here at Roger Williams is our advising program, and I'll speak a little bit more about that as well. if you select the chemistry track, this is the list of the hard sciences that you take. So you'll notice here, our chemistry track students have to take 2 semesters of organic. They take analytical chem, instrumental, biochem, and then we let them choose a chemistry elective as well. They do 1 semester of biology, and they do the 2 semesters of physics as well. So it's a pretty hardcore science class list. But again, the idea here is that you're going to graduate and be able to go on to a career in the field or on to graduate school. Now, both tracks take these 4 criminal justice courses. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's very important to us that our forensic science students are well-versed in the criminal justice system. So we have our students take intro to CJ, and then the other 3 courses have to deal with the handling of evidence, the investigation, and how the court system works. Since that's where we're going to see most of the intersection between forensic science and the criminal justice system. Our forensic science students also have to take 5 electives, and these are some of the electives that we offer. So in the survey course, and I have the adjuncts listed here who teach, because one of the other things that we like to do is we have our full-time criminal justice faculty, biology faculty, and chemistry faculty teaching all of those core major courses. But when we get to the specific forensic science courses, we see a lot of value in having the experts in the field come in and teach for us. So for example, Jessica Robidoux-Lager, she is actually a chemist for the state of Massachusetts. So she teaches our survey course, which shows students all of the different careers that are available in the field. And she also teaches our course on quality assurance. And she works in a lab. It's very important that our students are knowledgeable on the ethical standards and the other standards in the field as to how things should be processed and stored, because the handling of evidence is going to be crucial in any type of a case later on, okay? So those are very important. Case studies in forensic science, we usually have a police officer or a retired police officer teaching that course, and they talk specifically about how forensic science is used in specific cases. So if you think about, you know, the O.J. Simpson trial, the Unabomber, you know, a lot of these cases rely on the evidence and how they're collected. So it's an important course for our students to see how what they're learning applies in the real world. Dr. Priya Banerjee is an assistant medical examiner in Rhode Island. She teaches our elective in forensic pathology and also our capstone course. And the one course on this list that is required of all forensic science students is the forensic science course, and that is taught by a former DEA agent and chemist. So that is the course where you do the traditional forensic science fun stuff, I'll say, the fingerprinting, the castings, handwriting analysis, and that sort. Our students also have a few other options. They can do an internship, and we've had students place in quite a few crime labs and police departments throughout the New England area. And our assistant dean oversees the internship program, and students can earn credit for that. And then I oversee the independent studies. So if there is a student who is interested in studying an area more in depth, then either I or someone else can oversee an independent study where they spend the semester doing research on that area and speaking with professionals in that field who are doing the work. Becca did hers on forensics linguistics, which wasn't an area that I knew too much about until she did that. And it was very exciting. And if she wants to talk about that in a little bit, she can do that as well. So we have lots of different options. We will also allow our students to take some courses in psychology and get those approved to count here. A lot of our students are interested in forensic psychology and legal psychology, so we do allow for that. We want our students to be focusing on areas that they have a real interest in. I always put this slide up because we all have probably heard about the CSI effect. The photo on your right is from a television show, and we tend to see in the TV shows all this really cool equipment, and you know, everybody is really good looking and they're always well made up and they're dressed to the nines. That's not real life. Okay. So we just like our students to the picture on the left is a real lab. You see how sterile it is. You don't see all that great high tech fun stuff. All those tools and things that are out there. It's a tedious job. I mean, you get called out at all hours of the night, and it's a fun job. It's a great job, but it's not what we see on TV. This is always an important thing to talk about, where our students are and where the jobs are. We've had several graduating classes so far in the forensic science major. It's a fairly new major at Roger Williams. We've had about 4 graduating classes, and I like to track where our students are. So out of all of the students that have graduated, I can tell you all but one of them is either in grad school or working in the field. Okay, so we have students in different graduate programs throughout the country. We have grad students currently at BU, University of New Haven. I have a student who's applied to John Jay. So we've got students in some of the top forensic science graduate programs. We also have some students who graduated who wanted to go to law school, and they're using the forensic science major as a basis for law school. In terms of other areas of employment, we have a student who is working in the medical examiner's office in Massachusetts. We have one of our alumni who recently got a job working in the chemistry lab here in Rhode Island for the state. So we've got them in pretty good locations, and some of our students have really chosen to do interesting things. We have a few who are actually working with district attorney's office with victims of crime. So they're doing victim advocates, working with people who have been victims of domestic violence. And we also have a student who is currently in nursing school because her goal is to be a sexual assault nurse examiner. So she'll be able to use her forensic science background along with her nursing degree to actually help victims of criminal actions. So I am very proud of all of our students. I advise a good majority of the forensic science students. I feel like they're my own kids, and I always want to know where they're going and what they're doing and how we can help them along the way. I have an open door policy about the advising, which I think is a highlight of Roger Williams. Every semester, students have to come and meet with their academic advisor. They cannot actually register for classes unless they've met with their advisor and I've lifted their hold. So I advise about 40 of the forensic science majors. We have 89 forensic science majors right now, so I have almost half of them. And every semester, we review what they've done and where they need to go. I typically ask students to come prepared with a list of classes that they believe that they should be taking. And then we review that and talk about their future plans and if they want to go to grad school or med school, what we should be using their elective credits for. And I track all of this in either online through our advising process or in their academic folder, which I have. So we can go back and review that and make sure everyone's tracking properly. And if they're having any issues or if they're unsure, I want to make sure that I'm there and I have the right information to help them with that. And this starts on day one. So hoping everything gets back on track and we're all back on campus in the summer, you'll come for an orientation And that's where you'll start picking your classes for the fall semester. And I'll start taking notes right then and there about what you want to do when you graduate, okay? So it's a fairly regimented major. A lot of these courses, as you can probably tell, are sequenced. So you want to take chemistry 1 before you take chemistry 2. That's very important. And, but that's why we're there to guide you and help you out. So one other thing that I want to mention, and I must have accidentally deleted the slide, is the math requirement. Our forensic science students have to take 1 semester of calculus. And we do highly recommend that when you decide Roger Williams is the place for you, that in the summer you take the math placement exam, or you send us your AP credits so we can make sure that we get you in the right math class, because the math is very important for that science sequence. Okay? And then the last thing I just want to mention before I turn it over to Becca and Caroline is that I'm going to trump Bill a little bit on time at the university, but this is the end of my 24th year at Roger Williams. And I love this campus. I love this faculty, the staff, everyone always works together. We have people who work around the clock trying to make sure that everything is working for our students right now. I've given many of my students my cell phone number. We're doing Zoom meetings. I'm so proud of how this university has pulled together to help our students through this crisis that we're going through. And I don't think I've ever been more proud to say that I've worked at Roger Williams than how I see everyone now. And being here for as long as I have, I've seen this campus go through a lot of changes. And I will say that I have always felt supported by the administration, and that if there was ever something that we needed, we had it. We've got some new lab space coming online for the fall for forensic science. And we also have a space off campus where we will be able to set up some crime scenes for our students to work through as, future forensic scientists. So I'm very excited to be a part of this program. And I think this is a great opportunity for students because there's a lot of potential growth in this field. So, I just want to take this time to say you're making great choices in terms of careers, because you will definitely have a job. All right, so Becca, Caroline, we can't have you arm wrestle to see who goes first. So, Caroline, why don't you start, since you're a current student, if you don't mind telling everybody a little bit about what you're doing.
So I am a current sophomore, almost junior, scary. I am on the chemistry track, and I am working my way through organic chemistry 2 and instrumental chemistry. So just to get a sense of where I am in the chemistry track. I came into this program thinking, okay, criminal justice or forensic science. I'm like, which one? I started with biology, hated it. I hated it so much. Then I took the first chemistry class, and I was like, yes, there is where I'm going with this. So I was in the boat at first of, do I want biology track or chemistry track? And Dr. Banzi was able to work with me and help me figure that out. Another thing to note is that I feel, in my opinion, most freshmen should be taking the survey of forensic science, because that kind of helps you narrow down where you want to go. Because one of the final paper for that class is writing about what specialty you want to go into. So it kind of forces you to think about where you can go and what you want to do with your major. So I've grown to work with the chemistry professors very well. Organic is not easy. I'm going to warn you ahead of time, Pete. Warn you guys ahead of time, but you will get through it. It's not the worst class you'll probably take. So, but I love the professor. Dr. Rossi is amazing. Dr. Breen is so nice. I had Professor Futoma. I've had almost all the professors. I've finally made my decision for my core concentration. So I'm going to do psychology and probably turn that into a minor with the extra class. And I'm planning on finishing with a double minor. So criminal justice and psychology.
Caroline, can you talk a little bit about some of the extracurriculars you do so that the students know that
Yeah.
you're not just going to be in a book 24/7?
Yeah. So I am currently a member of Drastic Measures, which is an one of the a cappella groups on campus. Sadly, our invitational got canceled for this semester, but it's not the end of the world. I'm also part of Habitat for Humanity, so I go on build trips once a year. So a week, either spring break or January, we go somewhere. I recently went to North Carolina in January. I went to Charlotte and we built a house from the ground up. So we got all 4 walls, all the interior walls, and it was amazing. And then I'm part of John Jay Society, which is the club for any student under the School of Justice Studies, and Science Alliance. So I'm very busy outside of my major actual academics, but I make it work.
And Caroline comes and sees me at least once or twice a week, which I love. And we often talk about things outside of the major, right? She's made a couple of good Netflix recommendations to me. So we have a very good relationship. We can talk about anything. Thank you. Okay, Becca, go for it.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Becca. I graduated in 2018 with a degree in forensic science. I also had a double major in modern language, which is another way of saying Spanish, and I had a minor in criminal justice. A little bit about my time at Roger Williams. So I was a resident assistant or an RA for 3 years on campus. I was also an orientation advisor. So that was welcoming new students in the summer ahead of the fall semester. I loved my time at Roger Williams. I originally didn't really want to go to Roger Williams because I'm from Bristol, Rhode Island. So I live all of about 4 miles down the road from the campus. So I grew up seeing the university and being like, oh, I'm going to spread my wings and fly and go somewhere else. But I ended up at Roger Williams and I couldn't have been more grateful or been in a better place. I really embraced the time there on campus. I think especially living on campus and as opposed to living at home really helped me have that experience that I didn't know I was going to be able to get. Aside from that, I was very active. Aside from just my job positions on campus, I spoke at these events as a student. I actually, my senior year, I presented about the CSI effect with what Dr. Manzi talked a little bit about. I had done something called a Hawk Talk, which was our version of a TED Talk. And I was the representative from the School of Justice Studies, kind of talking about the intersection of the CSI effect and forensic science. What else about me? I think one of the first times I met Dr. Manzi, I told her I was going to go to grad school and I was going to go to grad school at Boston University School of Medicine. And I kind of had my whole life planned out. So a lot of what I was doing was how I was going to get myself from point A to point B, knowing where I wanted to end up. So that's where I currently am now. I'm supposed to be graduating in May. I don't think I'll be walking across the stage, but I just presented my thesis via Zoom this past week. And a really important thing I kind of want to talk about is my experience and how it's kind of stayed cohesive between Roger Williams and my graduate program. So I took many of the electives that were listed, and I really, really enjoyed the Survey of Forensic Science course that Caroline talked about briefly, which is taught by Jessica Ledger. And so she works at the Massachusetts State Crime Lab. And when I was going into my senior year of undergrad, I actually had an internship with the crime lab and their criminalistics unit. So I shadowed Jessica and her peers, and I also kind of went through the different units that were in the lab in Lakeville. And I had done a study for them about their acid phosphatase chemicals, which are those chemicals that you test for the presence of semen for. So I really enjoyed that. I had all of the respect in the world for Jess, seeing her in the classroom and in the lab. So when I got to grad school and it was time to do my thesis, I sent her an email and I asked her to be a part of my thesis committee, and she graciously accepted. So it was really important for me to kind of combine my two schools that I have so much love for and that have really kind of shaped me into the woman I am and the future scientist that I will be. So that was really great, that the relationship that I had made from her within the classroom, with seeing her in her element in her lab, kind of to this day is strong. And she was willing to take the time out of her very, very busy life to be a part of my graduate thesis. So that was fantastic. Another thing that I think is really important about this program is the criminal justice courses that Dr. Manzi talked about. I can say in my experience in grad school, there were a few other forensic science undergrad majors who were also pursuing a degree in forensic science. But I don't want to toot my own horn, but I had a leg up in the sense that I had criminal justice courses, and we are required in my graduate program to have law courses. So I was really able to articulate a lot more than my peers in the beginning, because I had practice with people who had been practicing lawyers and their professional careers at Roger Williams. So I was able to really understand that coursework a lot better than some other people, because I had been exposed to an undergrad, which I think is really important. And it's not only for being able to communicate it if you're going to be testifying in a court of law once you are a forensic scientist, but I think it stood out that I had experience before in knowing the law lingo and knowing about processing evidence and the law of evidence. So that was really great. Let's see, I have a note of things I wanted to say. My final thing that Dr. Manzi also talked about was my independent study. So that came about, we were just talking about what I wanted to do. So as I had mentioned, I had a double major in Spanish. So I basically kind of fused the two and did linguistics, which is the study of language, in combinations with forensics. So we talked about, oh my gosh, I can't even, a lot about, I'm blanking, but we had a lot of conversations about how maybe ransom notes apply to the language, and how that could be useful in forensic science. We also kind of talked about handwriting analysis, which is a totally different field. But it was really interesting because it was not hard science that I was talking about. It was that like liberal arts, learning a language, that was also my other major. So I kind of tied up my time at Roger Williams with a nice bow on it and kind of created this paper that was a fusion of the two degrees I was basically going to be graduating with. So it feels like a lifetime ago since I graduated. I don't know if that's just because I've been in school for what feels like forever, but I've loved it. And I think especially since I'm still in school and I see the relationship or the lack of a relationship that a lot of my friends have with their advisors from undergrad or their professors, like I am so lucky, and I say this very often, to have the relationships that I do with the adjuncts, with Dean Manzi, with Dean Bronson. It's something that is so important to me, and I value it so much. And if you seize that opportunity, it's there for everyone to be able to maintain relationships that will really help you in your professional career. And when I was having just a tough time in grad school, I would send them an email and be like, I just need to vent. So it's really great. And I can't speak more highly of the experience that I did have when I was there.
Thank you, ladies. We appreciate that. Bill, do you want to open it up for questions?
Sure. Let's open this up. Just a reminder for anybody who may have checked in late, because I believe we have 22 different prospective students who are participating as a part of this session. If you take your cursor, because we have so many people, if you take your cursor, put it over onto the screen, you'll notice the chat function on the menu that appears at the bottom. It is to the right of the share screen. You can, from there, have the opportunity to be able to bring up the chat function, type in any question that you have. I know that usually takes a couple of seconds for people to get that going. So as people are typing, I just wanted to kind of follow up on a point that Dr. Manzi made earlier in regards to AP testing prior to your arrival. I realize that the AP tests this year are obviously in a very different place than we expected them to be because of the current situation. I know that they have changed this year's AP test to a take-home test, but using a system where you're really not going to have the benefit of being able to do your test with the internet open. We are as flexible as you're going to see any university be when it comes to any higher level testing for this year. I work with international students almost exclusively as a part of my role in the admissions office. And I can tell you that we plan to be very flexible when it comes to AP testing, IB testing, the International Baccalaureate for any of you who are in that particular program, or for anybody who may be studying overseas in a British system who may be taking the A-levels this year as well. There's been a lot of drastic changes because of the COVID-19 situation, and we will be as flexible as possible, not just with those particular tests, but also with your grades, knowing that some of you will be coming to us in the final semester with pass-fail grades as opposed to a traditional GPA in the final term. Know that as a university, we know that you're going to do the best that you can with the situation here in this final semester, and we still will welcome you regardless of the circumstances, when you arrive here on campus for orientation, whether that be in June, July, or whether it comes to move in August. So with that said, I know that we have a number of questions here already. Let's start from the top. This one comes from Noah. Is it possible to take a psychology track for forensic science, or would you have to go through a biology or chemistry track before getting to a psych selection?
So Noah, I'm thinking maybe you're interested in forensic psychology and not possibly forensic biology or chemistry. So I'm not sure if you're more interested in working with criminals and like psychopaths, sociopaths along that line. But as a forensic science major, you do have to select either a track in bio or chemistry. We do not have a track in forensic psychology. But you can do your minor in psychology. You could also, if you want to, we can actually track it, and you could actually double major with forensic science and psychology as well.
And
I hope that answers the question. We don't have an undergraduate forensic psychology program at Roger. We do have a graduate program, so you could work your way through to that.
That's what I was going to mention. So our next question comes from Jackie. I was accepted as a biology major, but I'm also interested in forensic science. What are my options for exploring that?
So what I would recommend is, so as a biology major or as a forensic science major, your first semester would pretty much look exactly the same, your math, your bio. The first semester as a forensic science major, you're usually taking, and this depends on where you would start with your math, but typically a student is going to start with the first semester of biology, the first semester of chemistry, math, and usually one of those core concentration classes. And then in the spring, we would have you take the survey of forensic science class. And as Becca and Caroline mentioned, that class will give you an overview. So that might make you feel as though, which one would be better for you in terms of majors to get you where you want to go career-wise. But you can always take our forensic science courses, even if you're in the bio department. I mean, if you're a straight bio major, you're more than welcome to take our forensic science electives as well.
We have a question here from Paige, and Paige was, if I remember correctly, a part of Dr. Rossi's presentation yesterday. Question is, would I be able to take calculus-based physics instead of algebra-based physics? I obviously would have to take the accompanying math prerequisite.
We are not going to hold you back. If you would like to take calculus-based physics, more power to you. We will substitute that in. Yes, one of the things that we're allowed to do is substitute similar classes. So yes, you can see that the physics 1 and 2 that we require is algebra-based, but if you would love to take the calculus-based, we would allow that, absolutely.
Our next question comes from Gina. I'm extremely interested in ballistic analytics and crime scene analysis, but I'm also interested in the biology track. Which do you think would be more suiting?
Well, what I'm going to say is I always recommend to the students to do the track where they like the classes the most. So even if you are interested in ballistics and you're probably thinking you should do chemistry, you can do bio. You're going to, for you, physics is going to be very important, as well as examining, you know, powder burns and things of that nature. But one of the things that I always want to remind our students of is that, you know, you're not going to take a class with us that's all about ballistics, because you're going to either need to go to graduate school, or you're going to do an internship or some type of an apprenticeship with a lab that studies that, okay? Because we don't offer a course on something that specific, because the technologies change and every field and agency that you're going to work for might want you to do things a little bit differently. So you'll get an understanding of it here with us. But again, going back to your main question, I always say you go with the track that you love. If you have more of a love for the biologies, then you do that. And if you want to go to graduate school, or you see some other additional training you want and there's a requirement for more chemistry, then we have you take those extra chemistry classes as free electives.
We have a couple more questions that have popped up here. Two of them are related to calculus. So let me ask the first one. This one comes from, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Amandine. If I have already completed calculus, will I still have to take the course offered in school, or is there a test that I can take?
So so a little bit, I might have to answer that with a question. It depends on if you took a traditional calculus level chemistry class in high school, then yes, you would still have to take it with us, because you're going from a high school calculus to a college calculus class. And our calculus class is 4 credits. It has a lab. So it's probably a little bit more in depth than a basic high school calculus class. On the other hand, if you've taken AP calculus and you take the exam and you score high enough that you're exempt, then we don't make you take calculus. But given those two options, all of our students will take the math placement test. So you will probably, if you're in calculus and it's not AP, but you place high, you might place directly into calculus, but yes, you would still take it. The only way you're exempt from it is if you're either bringing in a college credit for calculus or an AP test score for calculus.
And we have
on the bright side, you should do very well.
That's true. We have a similar question from Madison, who says, I know calculus is required along with another math course. Is it possible for this second class to be calculus 2 instead of statistics?
Well, that would be something that we would be willing to talk with you about on an individual level. As I mentioned, we can do some substituting. One of the reasons why we have our students taking statistics is because some of you will be going to graduate school, reading journals where the statistics is pretty important, and you'll see that you use statistics in some of your other classes. But if you had a real desire to take another semester of calculus, or and there's a good rationale for it, it's definitely something that we could speak about.
Can I say one thing about that?
Go for it.
Just in terms of statistics, I don't know what Madison your interest may be, but at least to be a DNA analyst and also toxicology, you're required to have a statistics course on your transcript. There are regulations now that there are some classes that are required, and statistics is one that branches a few fields of forensic science. So that's one thing that I was really glad about going into a grad program and then going into the job hunt. I have some of my friends who have to take statistics online right now because they didn't have that in their undergrad degree. And we didn't have one in my graduate program. So just a little piece of information for you there, I guess.
Thank you, Becca.
You're welcome.
We do have another question from Madison here, and this is computer related. Is there a certain digital platform that you recommend for the forensic science program? Do you use, and the list here includes Google PC, I'm assuming Mac would be in there as well.
We don't have any set requirements on whether you have a Mac or a PC. We don't require any specialized software that would indicate one or the other. So that's really what your preference is.
Very good. It looks like we have a lot of thank you follow-ups from different students. Oh, I'm sorry, here, let me follow up with Jillian because she does ask a question here at the bottom. Is it possible for AP Physics credit to transfer over?
Absolutely. Yes. I encourage everyone who is taking AP exams when they get those scores to send them to us. If you don't have them by the time we do course selection, make sure that we're aware of it, because we do not want you taking a class that you're going to be getting credit for.
And I think that's very important, especially this year, knowing that there are the drastic changes in the AP testing this year. I know that they are committed to try to get the test results back in good time, but nobody's exactly sure when that's going to be this year. So hopefully, you know, if we are on the same schedule that we anticipate with what we've done historically with orientation being in June and that being the first opportunity to be able to select classes, we'll see whether or not the AP exams are in by that point.
Well, and just to add to that, our freshmen don't typically take physics in the first year. So if that score lagged a little bit, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. We're more interested, you know, if the math is really important, the chems and the bios, if anybody is doing AP exams in those areas, because those could impact your first semester. But even, you know, given that, if you came in for orientation in June and you weren't sure what your score was, the great thing is we can change your schedule. So we would probably put you in a class, you know, and put a little asterisk by it, knowing that we may have to change it. I mean, we can change your classes up until the first week of the semester. So not that I'm not advocating that anybody take their time and put things off, right? Still, you know, take care of everything as soon as you can, but we have flexibility. So, you know, don't stress over that.
And we should certainly know the score by the third week of August, when students are generally checking in for classes.
Exactly.
We do have a follow-up with that. And one thing that I also wanted to just kind of follow up as well is, even if students have other AP tests that they have taken that are not directly related to forensic science, say you took a history AP or an English AP, we would still be looking at those scores as well for potential transfer credit. They just wouldn't go necessarily into the major. They would be going in towards your electives.
Yes, and some of those could count as a core concentration as well.
They sure could. So the follow-up from Gina is, what grades on the AP tests do you accept?
It varies based on the exam, but I don't have the listing in front of me, but for the sciences, we're usually looking at a 4 or a 5, but there are some that we take credit for a 3. And I apologize, I don't have that in front of me to give you more specifics, but if you want to, if anybody wants to send me an email after this, my email is smanzi@rwu.edu. And I will be sure to get back to you and get you any additional information, because I know sometimes we log off of these and then have 10 million questions. So do feel free to email me.
And you know, Dr. Manzi, don't feel bad that you don't know the entire catalog of how things transfer over. I've been asked this many times with all of the different types of tests that we accept for potential transfer credit. It is difficult to actually keep track of all of it, because it's some of it is done by major, and we will update those, you know, how everything works from year to year, because in addition to the AP, all of the other tests globally will update their systems, update subjects, and we're constantly looking as a university to be able to keep up with all of the changes with the various testing around the world.
And one of the things that we do have, as the program director, I keep a site for our majors where I post things. And some of the things that are in that site are degree plans. So if you choose the bio track or the chemistry track, we have a listing of everything that you have to complete. So it's a check off, right? You finish a class, you check it off. We make recommendations as to sites to look for jobs and internships. So there's a lot of resources that we make available. The list that graduate students, people who are interested in going to grad school or med school, we have those links up there as well.
Does anybody else have any additional questions? I think we've gotten through more questions than I've seen in any of the sessions that I've participated in at this point. We'll wait for a couple of seconds for anybody who might be typing anything in.
Well, while we're waiting, again, if anybody has any follow-up questions, please feel free to send me an email. I'll get back to you as soon as I check my email several times a day, so you won't be waiting long for a response. And good luck through this process. I know it's stressful. It's probably a little bit extra stressful because of not being able to come to campus as well. But I can't say enough how much I actually, how much I love the university, and I actually miss being there right now.
I think you're not alone in that sentiment either.
Not.
I almost drove in to sit in my office today to do this, and then I said,
Caroline or Becca, do you have any final closing statements?
I just want to say this is a great program. I was honestly thinking, do I really want to go to school in Rhode Island, because that's a little further for me from home? But if I was also considering University of Rhode Island, if any of you guys are as well. But I'm glad I came here, and I'm not regretting this decision at all.
Thank you.
I don't really have too much to add to that. I just, I can't emphasize enough how much this program has prepared me for the grad program that I'm in and beyond. I took a lot out of it, academically, personally. I think I feel like I grew a lot as a person, and I really was able, although I had an idea of what I wanted to do, I was really able to hone in on exactly what I wanted to do and meet people who were willing and able to help me along the way, which I think is not something that you get everywhere you go. And I think that's one of the really great aspects of the program here, especially because it's a smaller school, it's a smaller program. I keep in touch with the people that I graduated with within my program. I mean, we're kind of all doing different things, and it's fascinating to see what one degree can bring you depending on what you want to do after. So.
Well, thank you very much. Dr. Manzi, thank you very much for your presentation here today.
Anytime.
Becca and Caroline, thank you for your participation here as well. Before we close things out, as Dr. Manzi was saying, we would love to have you on campus when it is safe to have people back on campus. We would love to host you, whether that's for a scheduled event, or if you have the ability to take the time when the time is right to be able to come in for an individual visit. We'll just have to see how that goes. You can feel free to contact us anytime. I know Dr. Manzi just shared her email address. If for some reason you didn't jot it down, you can always reach out to us in the admissions office at admit@rwu.edu. You can also call our line directly, and although no one is in the office currently, it does ring in one of my colleagues' apartments just outside of Providence. So we are getting back to students as quickly as we can, even though we are not currently on campus. With that said, I hope that everybody enjoys the rest of their afternoon and stays safe, and we look forward to seeing you on campus as soon as possible. Thank you very much.